We're in our AT&T studio at Grand Traverse Pie Company. I don't know what sort of wine you would pair with cherry pie, but it would be a pretty nice thing to try. Matt Smith is with us here, who is a Michigan native raised in Grosse Pointe Park and is now the winemaker for Kendall-Jackson. Is that title accurate? Am I really sitting with a baller like you?
Oh, geez, yeah. Well, thank you, first of all, for having me on the air. And yes, it is true. I have managed to transition from being a Michigan born and raised kid and with no real idea that you could be a winemaker, coming from a family that worked in the Detroit area. My parents still live in the Detroit area and raised me there. And I showed up in California 20 years ago and decided I had the wine bug, had to become a winemaker. And so
wow. At what age did your parents give you your first taste?
Probably 2.
Really?
My mother is of Italian heritage, and so it was real common to have wine on the table. It was very common to have a little water and wine mixed together for the kids.
Oh, really?
And I was notorious for going around at entire parties asking for sips from people, and I definitely
They didn't know you already had 6 of them by the time you got to Uncle Joey or whatever.
Precisely, that was the danger. Yeah.
Of course, Grosse Pointe is a wine drinking kind of place, really.
Sure. Yeah.
For those of you in Michigan who haven't been down there, it's the place where you would hold a teacup with your pinky finger up, right? And you'd wear pink and green and be very preppy.
I am wearing pink and green, as a matter of fact, today.
That's right now.
So you can't take the
Your pathway
didn't
Michigan, go
right?
straight from Grosse Pointe to California, though. It went through France.
Correct. I had the great fortune of being able to go abroad for the first time when I was 16, and spent a month in France with my high school class, and had for me, a revelatory experience. This is really cool to live in another culture and be part of everyday life where I was speaking a different language every day. And so that became a passion of mine. I went back as a university student for my junior year abroad in Paris at the Sorbonne, and then was also just inspired by it all, and went back again after graduating from the University of Michigan, and lived for about 2 years in Paris and traveling all over France, and before I decided to come back to the United States.
Parlez-vous français?
Oui, très bien. Et vous?
Merci.
Okay.
Vin rouge, por favor.
Okay. A little mixture of French and Spanish. I speak Spanish too.
S'il vous plaît. Right.
Très bien.
Thank you. The fact of the matter is it true that the French would not drink wine just to drink wine? They would only drink wine when paired with food, or is that a wives' tale?
That is largely very true. It's very much a part of the table, of the dinner table, and so for the family that I spent most of my time with when living in France, we would go to the nearest local winery and buy what we would call like sort of a keg of wine, and then have it in the cellar at home and bottle it and serve it on the dinner table, and that was just part of every meal, and so that really helped me to realize my love of wine, and also the way I look at it as it is an accompaniment to food and part of great social interaction, family meals. It means a lot to me. Do
you know Nino Cheravino by any chance?
I do not.
The Grosse Pointe. He represents the wine industry, sort of a lobbyist.
Okay.
And I sat with him many times drinking wine at places like Arriva and Andiamo and so forth. And he's Italian, obviously. He'd say, Gilles, I know you're Irish, but you're supposed to sip wine, not gulp it.
Not gulp it.
And so that was one lesson I had in wine in any case. I've spent some time in Paris, and as a travel writer, I get to meet lots of interesting people like yourself. And I asked the sommelier at the Four Seasons, George Sank, and also at Les Maurice, both of them the same question. And I said, if you could have one glass of wine to drink, and that's it for the rest of your life, I'll ask you what you would say, because you have a very refined palate, and then I'll tell you what they said. And their answer was the same, by the way, even though they're completely across town.
Wow, interesting. So the question being, if there was only one wine left on the earth,
and that's it.
That was it. Boy. I would probably have to go with, for me, the experience of a really fine dessert wine, like a Chateau Yquem Sauterne. If that was the last thing I was going to have, would be something like that. I've had a couple of different wines like that or a Montrachet from Burgundy, where you can just let it sit in the glass for hours, and it will continue to change. And it's that kind of an experience where it just transcends wine.
Would it shock you to know that they both said they would have a Riesling?
Yeah. Well, it's along those same lines.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a dry Riesling, as I prodded them a little bit more, but that did surprise me.
Yeah.
What should we taste if we're going to Dusty Cellar or Meyer to pick up wine today from Kendall-Jackson? What would you prescribe for us?
Well, I think folks should definitely try the new line of wines from Kendall-Jackson, the Avant wines. We have started about 4 years ago with the Avant Chardonnay, and the idea being we wanted to offer wine consumers a different style of Chardonnay from Kendall-Jackson. As people are well aware, we're very famous for our Chardonnay, for the Vintners Reserve Chardonnay, and wanted people to have an alternative that would be appropriate for different cuisines, different times. It makes a great wine for summer right now, sitting out on a patio with some seafood or something like that. Wonderful. Well, this year we launched 2 new wines to accompany the Avant Chardonnay in that series. One is the Avant Sauvignon Blanc, and the other is the Avant Red Blend. And they're both delicious, both very fresh and fruity, fruit-forward wines.
I promise to try them all.
Yeah, you should.
Thank you very much, Matt Smith, and congratulations on your success.
Thank you so much.
The Winemaker for Kendall-Jackson from right here in Michigan.